Today we are strapping in to really unpack the story of a man, a company, and, well, the chip that is basically reshaping global technology and global finance, for that matter.
On a seismic level.
Exactly. We are going deep into Jensen Huang and NVIDIA, a company that is, it's not just succeeding anymore. It's become structurally indispensable. We're talking about a company whose hardware is, frankly, eating the world.
That phrase, structurally indispensable, that really gets to the heart of our deep dive today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've pulled together a huge stack of sources here detailing NVIDIA's just absolutely mind-blowing financial growth.
Right.
But more importantly, we're looking at the strategic pillars, the hardware, the software, the vision, that explain why they are pushing a $2 trillion valuation.
It's an insane number.
It is. So our mission today is to understand how NVIDIA went from being, just a component supplier for gamers.
A graphics card company.
A graphics card company, exactly, to becoming the foundational architect of the entire AI economy, a company with a valuation that's starting to rival the GDP of some countries.
And before we get into the numbers, we have to talk about the man driving it all. Because when you get a chance to talk to Jensen Huang, our sources say there should be like a warning label.
Oh, I've heard this.
You risk getting, and I'm quoting here, Jensen pilled. You start to see the future exactly as he describes it. It's this neural net nirvana of robot renaissances, medical breakthrough,
Driving cars.
and chatbots that actually remember everything you've ever said to them. The vision is so compelling. But the key thing is it's backed up by numbers that are, well, just staggering.
Yeah.
So let's look at the proof. Let's start by just setting the stage for how much this company has changed. I mean, this is not the old NVIDIA that, my generation remembers. The one that made your video games look a little bit better.
Right, that made Doom look marginally better.
Exactly. This is the current AI kingmaker. Their specialized hardware is the reason foundational models even exist, the reason we can talk to computers in plain English. And this reality means tech companies, well, they literally cannot get enough of their stuff.
And the financial surge, it just confirms this isn't a typical tech boom. This is something different. It's a foundational shift in how the world computes. And we just take a snapshot from, say, the last quarter of 2023. The speed of the growth it's almost unprecedented for a company this big.
Give us the headline numbers.
Okay, so revenue hit a staggering $22 billion. That's more than double what everyone was expecting.
Wow.
But the number that really jumps out, the most shocking one, is the year-over-year growth of their data center business. That's where all the AI stuff lives. It saw a 265% increase.
265% in 1 year.
In 1 year. And this hyper growth is what's pushed them toward that, like you said, that rarefied $2 trillion market cap. For anyone watching this, it went up 231% in a single calendar year.
So these aren't just success metrics, they're signals, right? They signal a massive tipping point where the whole world's tech infrastructure has basically consolidated around one single provider.
And that tipping point is really clear when you look at market share. It looks less like healthy competition and, more like a necessary dependency. NVIDIA accounts for more than 70% of sales in the high-end AI chip market.
Some estimates put it even higher, don't they? Like closer to 80%.
Some do, yes, between 70 and 80%. Which means if you're Google, if you're Microsoft, Meta, any big player building an AI model,
Yeah.
you are fundamentally buying your hardware from Jensen Huang.
It's a near monopoly, and that means demand is just. It's completely outstripping supply. You have this structural scarcity.
And that scarcity, that structural scarcity, leads to maybe the most striking indicator of their power. And it's a financial one that, it goes way beyond just looking at a balance sheet. We're seeing major financial institutions, banks, start treating NVIDIA GPUs as appreciating capital assets.
Okay, wait, say that again. Not depreciating hardware, appreciating assets.
Exactly. We found really strong evidence of a mid to large size company getting a $5 billion line of credit.
$5 billion?
By using about 5,000 of their older generation NVIDIA V100 GPUs as collateral.
I need you to unpack that for me. Banks give loans against things like real estate, things that hold value. Computer hardware depreciates so fast it's worthless in 3 to 5 years. Why would a bank treat a GPU like a piece of property?
It says everything, doesn't it? It speaks volumes about the perceived long-term inelastic demand. The bank's calculation is actually pretty simple. These chips are the new shovels in the gold rush. They are essential for economic output.
So if the company defaults...
If the company defaults, the bank knows that those 5,000 GPUs will be snapped up instantly on the secondary market. probably at or even above what they originally cost, because everyone needs compute power right now, and you can't get it new. The waiting list is months, maybe years.
So the collateral is seen as tangible, it's bankable, an appreciating asset.
It elevates the hardware from just being a component to being like a critical strategic asset, almost like a national resource. That single financial move is probably the strongest proof of how indispensable they've become.
And the man at the center of this whole thing, this accelerated imperium, is Jensen Huang. He's 61. And the picture you get from our sources is so recognizable, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. The trademark black leather jacket. He wears it everywhere.
And the simple black sneakers. He has this almost debilitating work ethic. He's admitted he hates Monday mornings because he works all day Sunday and, he starts the official week already exhausted.
That kind of relentlessness, you can see how it's baked into the company culture.
And his approach is just, it's so unexpected sometimes, especially when he's outside the usual Silicon Valley bubble. One source told this story about him showing up at a healthcare investment symposium.
Right. A room full of, as they put it, cautious biotech nerds in blazers, all focused on very specific, targeted research.
And Huang gets up there, the visionary storyteller, and he contrasts the language they use with his world. He says something like, we use words like creation and improve and accelerate, and you guys use words like target and inhibit.
He's basically telling them they're thinking in terms of limits, of constraints, while he's focused on, just boundless computational possibility.
His pitch wasn't subtle at all. It was just laser focused on their biggest problem. He said, if you're struggling with the AI computation you need for drug design, his advice was just send us an email.
He's not positioning NVIDIA as a chip seller there. He's positioning them as the solution provider for the biggest, most fundamental bottleneck problems in every single industry. Healthcare, logistics, you name it.
And that tenacity, that resilience, it seems so deeply rooted in his background, which is one of the more fascinating origin stories in tech, I think.
Oh, absolutely. At age 9, he and his older brother were sent from Taiwan to the U.S. unaccompanied minors. They ended up at the Oneida Baptist Institute in Kentucky.
And their uncle thought it was a prestigious boarding school, right?
He did. But it was actually a religious reform academy.
The experience was, by all accounts, brutal.
Brutal is the word. He was relentlessly bullied, called slurs every single day. He shared a room with a 17-year-old who, showed him where he'd been stabbed. He had to clean the communal bathrooms.
And he credits that time with building his resilience, learning to just toughen up and move on.
It seems like he internalized this sense of vulnerability, but also a deep need for self-reliance. And he excelled. He graduated high school early. He was a champion table tennis player, skipped 2 grades.
So does that background mean he runs NVIDIA like some kind of boot camp? Or is that resilience channeled in a more strategic way?
It's entirely strategic. What's so fascinating is how he translates that past into his methodology today. He reasons strictly from first principles. He absolutely hates speculation. He mentioned in an interview he's never even read a science fiction novel.
Really? That's surprising for a tech CEO.
Isn't it? He doesn't invent problems that technology might solve someday. He focuses on what microchips can do right now and then makes these huge bets on what the laws of physics and economics will allow them to do tomorrow. It's that combination of deep first principles thinking and this almost existential fear of failure that drives their long-term planning.
So they're not trend followers. They're trying to anticipate and build the infrastructure for the next big thing before anyone else even knows it's coming.
Exactly. That's the core of the strategy. And it explains their current dominance. Jensen Huang's greatest strength has been this pattern of seeing and positioning NVIDIA in front of every single major computational inflection point.
And these were pivots made years before the market actually caught up.
Monumental foresight was required. So let's run through those tipping points because they're really crucial to understanding the timeline here.
Okay, lay them out for us.
The foundational move was about a decade ago. The first big one was 2012 with AlexNet. This was a groundbreaking image recognition system from the University of Toronto.
And it was the first to really show that GPUs were way better than CPUs for this kind of work, right?
Vastly superior. It empirically demonstrated that GPUs, with their massively parallel design, were perfect for the billions of calculations needed for deep learning. This was the technical validation Huang needed. It's what prompted him to chase AI full steam, even when most of their revenue was still coming from gaming.
Okay, so that's the first moment. The second one, arguably even more critical, came a few years later.
That's right, 2017. Google releases the transformer architecture. This is the novel neural network that is the T in ChatGPT and all the other large language
It's
models.
the foundation for everything we're seeing today.
Everything. The transformer created this unprecedented massive demand for parallel computation, and that demand aligned perfectly with the GPU's design. It was a perfect feedback loop. The algorithm needed GPUs to scale, and GPUs were the only thing that could handle that scale. That's what lit the fuse on the current AI gold rush.
And this historical context is so important because it led to a huge strategic realization, one that challenged the core assumption of computing for decades: Moore's law.
He explicitly challenged it. He said, we have to leave Moore's law behind so we can think about new ways of scaling. That's not just an engineer talking. That is a declaration of independence from a 50-year-old industry standard.
And the data shows they did it. They transcended it.
They did. Moore's law, was about transistor density doubling every 2 years, performance doubling. Huang's view is that it's now much more of a systems problem than a chip problem. You can't just shrink transistors forever.
The gains get marginal.
Exactly. So NVIDIA focused on accelerated computing, optimizing performance across the entire system. Over the last 10 years, they've advanced AI computation by about 1,000,000 times,
A million times.
which is, as he says, many, many times Moore's law.
Mm-hmm.
The bottleneck isn't the single chip anymore. It's how you connect thousands of them to work as one giant computational unit.
Okay, so if the problem becomes the system, not the chip, that brings us directly to the next strategic move. The 2019 acquisition of Mellanox, the Israeli networking company.
A masterstroke.
This wasn't just a random purchase. This was about solving that exact systems problem.
It was designed specifically to address the end of Moore's law. If you can't get faster on a single chip, you have to get radically better at connecting thousands of them so they act as one. Mellanox was bought to take an extension of our chip and make an entire data center into a super chip.
So what was the technical leap there? What did Mellanox actually give them?
It gave them control over the plumbing, the essential interconnectivity fabric. We're talking about InfiniBand and high-speed Ethernet technology. This stuff is mandatory for low-latency communication between thousands of GPUs.
Because if one chip is waiting even a millisecond for data, the whole supercomputer grinds to a halt.
The whole thing slows down. By controlling the networking layer, NVIDIA eliminated that bottleneck. And that move fundamentally transformed them from a parts manufacturer into an infrastructure architect, the architect of the modern AI supercomputer.
And now Huang is productizing this entire integrated architecture. He calls it the AI factory. And he sees this as a new kind of data center, more like a power generator or a utility.
That's a profound metaphor. A traditional data center offers general-purpose computing. You buy some CPU time, some storage, it's shared. An AI factory is dedicated, application-specific compute.
So like a dedicated power plant just for AI.
Exactly. A standard power grid is general energy. An AI factory is like building a hyper-efficient geothermal plant that only runs one type of machine AI models and produces one high-value output: intelligence.
And this is the standard he's setting for the future of basically every industry.
Every industry. He believes every car company will have two factories: one that builds the cars, the atoms, and one that builds the AI for the cars, the electrons.
You can't sell a modern car without the AI.
You can't. And this standard will extend to every biotech company, every retailer, every logistics firm. By defining this architecture and controlling the entire stack chip, network, software, NVIDIA makes its platform the mandatory infrastructure for global industry.
Okay, let's talk about that software stack, because when you talk about competitive moats, the one that makes NVIDIA seem almost unassailable right now is CUA.
Right. The GPUs get all the headlines, they're the expensive, shiny hardware, but the real competitive advantage is CUDA, their proprietary parallel computing platform.
And CUD is much more than just a driver, isn't it? Tell us about the depth of this ecosystem.
It's so much more than a driver.
Yes.
It's been built over more than a decade. CUDA is this indispensable layer of software, libraries, tools, compilers. It's the de facto operating system for large-scale machine learning.
And they started this way back in 2006.
Way back, long before AI was a mainstream commercial thing. They had a massive head start.
And this creates just astronomical developer switching costs, which is the key to their defense, right? This is what protects them from Google's TPUs, from Meta, and especially from AMD.
That's precisely right. If you're a developer, you've spent years writing code and specialized libraries just for the CUDA stack. Moving to another platform isn't just swapping out a card, it's throwing away a decade of your own expertise.
You can't just flip a switch and get the same performance on an AMD chip.
No. You have to rewrite, re-optimize, debug everything for a brand new, less mature, less supported software stack. The cost is measured in wasted researcher time and, competitive delay.
But every competitor is building an open source alternative. Google has JX, Meta has PyTorch. Doesn't open source eventually win?
That is the big question for their rivals.
Yeah.
The problem is CUDA isn't just a library, it's a whole ecosystem. And NVIDIA reinforces that ecosystem with active support. They call it the ecosystem multiplier.
What does that mean?
They provide non-monetary support to promising AI startups. They give them access to their own engineers, specialized optimization techniques. They can increase a startup's performance by a factor of 5.
So that's like getting 5 free GPUs.
It's essentially getting 5 more GPUs, in Huang's words. By making the ecosystem so much more efficient for the most innovative new companies, they ensure the next big breakthroughs are designed and optimized for CUDA from day one. They're betting the network effect is just insurmountable.
Now let's talk about where the money is actually being made today, because this really confirms that AI has moved out of the lab and into the real world. The key ratio from our sources is that NVIDIA's business is now about 70% inference.
And only 30% training.
Explain that. What's the so what of that ratio?
This is the so what for the entire industry. Training is the huge upfront cost, the capital expenditure to build a model, like pouring the foundation for a skyscraper. Inference is deployment. It's running the model every time a user types a prompt or a self-driving car makes a decision.
So the 70% inference number means AI isn't just research anymore, it's being used at scale.
It's operationalized, commercialized, and deeply embedded in workflows all over the world. And from a financial perspective, that is huge.
Because it guarantees a stable, recurring revenue stream.
Exactly. It's operational expenditure, OpEx. Training is cyclical. You do it every couple of years. Inference is continuous. It grows with usage. Every time you generate text or an image in the cloud, an NVIDIA GPU is probably doing the work. It's utility revenue.
It makes our future growth way more predictable.
It's the ultimate confirmation that AI is finally making it.
Okay, so given this massive, stable, recurring demand, are they finally catching up on supply? Are we past the GPU shortage?
Not even close.
No.
The demand is actually accelerating faster than they can ramp up production. According to Huang himself, they will not catch up on supply this year.
Wow.
And probably not next year. The scarcity is going to continue for the foreseeable future.
And even with demand being insatiable, the next generation is coming. Blackwell. Performance is supposed to be off the charts, but the goal has to be more than just raw speed.
Precisely. The core strategic objective for Blackwell is to reduce the cost of training models tremendously. Even if the price of the chip goes up, the cost per parameter plummets. It's a calculated move to defend their position. If a rival chip is 20% cheaper but 50% less efficient, it's just not economically viable for serious work.
This sustained dominance isn't just technical or financial, is it? It's deeply cultural, and it comes straight from Huang's philosophy.
It's entirely cultural and psychological, rooted in that resilience we talked about. He sees the company as perpetually vulnerable. A foundational mantra in their early days was, "Our company is 30 days from going out of business."
That's intense.
It is. But that ethos ensures they never rest. They use fear as a motivator for proactive innovation. It's their version of the day one philosophy.
And their whole organization is designed to support that constant state of emergency.
It has to be. NVIDIA runs a very flat organization. 30 to 40 executives report directly to him. It's designed to avoid bureaucratic delay, to let information flow instantly. In an exponential world, a hierarchy is just too slow.
So how does that fear of failure play out inside the company?
Huang's most radical belief here is that failure must be shared. It's a mechanism to force learning and prevent defensiveness. There's an incredible example from the early 2000s when they shipped a faulty graphics card, a total disaster.
Most CEOs would fire the product managers.
He didn't fire them. Instead, he had them present every single decision that led to the failure in minute detail to hundreds of people across the company. This corporate struggle session makes it clear who will last at NVIDIA. If you get defensive, if you blame others, you're out. You have to internalize the vulnerability and learn from it.
Okay, so let's look forward. We've talked about the Transformer paper as the Roman Empire moment for the current AI boom. If you ask Jensen Huang what today's equivalent is, what's he looking at?
The answer is foundational robotics and generative motion.
Generative motion.
His logic is, if AI can generate complex text and photorealistic images, then probably yes, it can generate complex physics-accurate motion for physical machines. This is the next big domain, moving from generating bits language and images to generating atoms' physical action.
What's the timeline on that? When does this new paradigm start driving those massive compute sales?
He's actually pretty specific. He predicts a robotic foundation model is probably around the corner. I'll call it next year sometime.
Right.
And once that foundation is laid, he says 5 years after that will bring some pretty amazing things.
And the target market for this isn't just, cute humanoid robots. It's the biggest sectors of the global economy.
Exactly. The largest industries in the world are heavy industries. They deal with moving atoms. So we're talking about transportation, global logistics, manufacturing, but also complex science like drug discovery, understanding how proteins fold. These are trillion-dollar industries that AI has barely touched.
And they all require real-time, low-latency compute.
Exponentially more inference compute.
So the algorithms themselves have to evolve too, right? It
Yeah.
can't just be the transformer forever.
Right. And NVIDIA is already focused on the successor. Huang has identified state space models, or SSMs, as probably the next transformer.
Okay, so what does this new architecture actually enable? What's the problem with the transformer that SSMs solve?
The core limitation of the transformer is that its computation grows quadratically. Every time it processes a new word, the attention mechanism has to look at and compare itself to every single previous word.
So if you double the length of the conversation, the compute quadruples.
It quadruples. It's n squared. That's why current chatbots have limited memory, or what we call context windows. It gets very expensive very fast.
So how do SSMs get around that?
They work differently. They don't use that expensive attention mechanism. Instead, they summarize the past into a compact, fixed-size state. They process information sequentially, linearly. This allows them to learn extremely long patterns and sequences without growing quadratically in computation.
So conversations could last forever and the AI would never forget the context.
Exactly. Or on a scientific level, you could process the entire human genome as one massive sequence and understand its meaning. And of course, NVIDIA is making sure its hardware is optimized for this future right now, reinforcing that CUDA moat.
And the final piece of this next frontier is Omniverse, NVIDIA's simulation platform. The industrial metaverse, as he calls it.
That's the computational stage where all this foundational robotics will be trained. Omniverse integrates ray tracing for realism, language processing, VR. It's all in there.
And its purpose is to create digital twins of the physical world. This is where AI moves from the abstract world of chat to the safety-critical world of physics.
It is absolutely mandatory for scaling autonomous systems. You can safely train robots and self-driving cars in a simulated physics-accurate reality. It's far faster and safer than doing it in the real world. You can test a new factory layout without shutting down the real one. Huang says it lets users speak whole universes into existence.
And that phrase brings us back to his grand vision.
It does. He asserts the programming language of the future will be human. Omniverse is the platform where human language becomes the interface for designing and optimizing complex physical systems. By controlling the simulation platform, the training tools, and the hardware, NVIDIA creates this closed loop. It's a world where the hardware, the software, and the environment are all necessary and all controlled by them.
Okay, but despite this seemingly unassailable position, he's got a target on his back. He's at the center of the US-China tech war, and he's being challenged by all the big names with deep pockets. Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, they all want to reduce their dependence on him.
And the hardware competition is definitely heating up. It's even personal. You have AMD, run by CEO Lisa Su.
Who is his first cousin once removed.
A fascinating generational rivalry. AMD is known for tailing incumbents, and they've rolled out a big processor, the MI series, to compete directly in the AI space. Their strategy is usually to be a little less performant, but significantly cheaper.
But the challenge for AMD and everyone else is still that software mode, isn't it?
It's always the software mode. AMD's hardware is capable, but their software ecosystem, ROCm, it just doesn't have the decade-plus maturity of CUDA. It takes years to convince researchers to switch from a platform that just works and have all the support. The hardware is the easy part. The community is the hard part.
And then you have these highly focused startups like Grok taking a totally different approach.
Grok is really interesting. They've gone viral with their custom language processing units, LPUs. They claim performance that's 13 times faster than ChatGPT for inference.
For inference specifically.
Specifically for inference, they're achieving nearly 500 tokens per second. They're challenging the idea that the GPU is the final word. Their chip is built for one thing: extremely low latency real-time inference.
Could a performance gain that big disrupt NVIDIA's recurring OpEx revenue?
It could, but Grok is focused on a niche. They aren't trying to train models. NVIDIA's advantage is the entire stack training and inference. Grok is a classic threat, though, a specialized tech that's way better at one thing. NVIDIA's response is to keep improving their own inference performance with things like Blackwell to close that gap.
And we can't ignore the energy consumption problem. Generative AI's energy use is projected to overtake Bitcoin's. The DGX A100 system is noted as being power hungry.
That is a major headwind. It's a legitimate concern for cloud providers and for, environmental policy. But it's also why NVIDIA focuses so much on efficiency. When Huang says they've advanced computation a million times, that's really a claim about efficiency, more computation per watt. The goal of Blackwell is to reduce the cost of training, and a huge part of that cost is energy.
So as NVIDIA moves from being a component vendor to a true platform company, that must expand their risk profile enormously.
It does. It's great for revenue, but it means they face much greater responsibility and potential liability for what the platform produces.
So the margin of error on a self-driving car, or bias in an AI system, that liability could now travel all the way up the stack to NVIDIA's core technology.
Exactly. When you are indispensable, you are also implicitly liable. The industry is still trying to figure this out.
So how does NVIDIA define its boundary here?
Their response is very clear and very strategic. They are not an application company. Their expertise is AI computing, not building cars or discovering drugs. Their stance is, we'll do as much as we have to, but as little as we can to serve an industry. They provide the tools, but they push the ultimate responsibility back onto their partners. It's a careful balancing act.
So to bring this all together, NVIDIA's dominance isn't just about having the fastest chips. It's about being a structural necessity.
It is. It's built on these interlocking pillars. The hardware architecture, the CUDA software moat, the AI factory concept, the perception of its hardware as a bankable, appreciating asset. And all of it is driven by this flat, adaptive culture born from a perpetual fear of failure.
Huang's journey, from the resilience he learned at that reform school to defining the future of Silicon Valley, is just an incredible testament to turning vulnerability into foresight. So for you, the listener, you should consider this. If the future programming language is human and the next big thing is foundational robotics, what previously impossible task in your industry now becomes the next logical step? How do you use this new kind of compute to solve problems that were just too big or too complex a year ago?
And I think the most profound implication from this whole deep dive is that shift of AI from research to utility, from training to 70% inference. When critical hardware is treated by banks as a capital asset that appreciates in value, not depreciates, how does that fundamentally change the way you value and invest in your own company's computational infrastructure?
Yeah.
If compute is now capital, if it's a factory building electrons, the whole spending calculation changes. It demands a long-term strategic view. And that's something really important to chew on as the AI factory continues to expand globally.